Welcome to The Briefing, your weekly debrief of top news by the Arizona Republic and azcentral.com. I'm Rafael Carranza, and this week we're coming to you from the Mexican consulate, where some voters will be able to choose the next president of Mexico. Here are the top three things to understand what's happening with the elections to our neighbor down to the south. The Mexican presidential election will take place on Sunday, June 2nd. They're held every 6 years, so they coincide with U.S. presidential elections every 12 years, like in 2024. Mexican presidents are limited to one 6-year term, so outgoing President Andrés Manuel López Obrador is constitutionally banned from running for re-election. There are 3 candidates vying for the job, though most analysts say it comes down to 2 people. Claudia Sheinbaum is favored to win. She's from the same leftist party as the current president and has led polls for months. Xochitl Galvez represents a coalition of opposition parties and holds more conservative views and stances. Whichever of these 2 women wins will become Mexico's first ever female president. The presidential campaign has been underway in Mexico since March. The top issue for voters in Mexico, according to analysts, is the security situation. Homicides and other violent crimes have gone up under López Obrador's hugs, not bullets strategy to combat the cartels. About 30 candidates for office have been killed so far this election cycle. Mexican citizens living abroad will be able to vote in this year's presidential elections. The deadline to register was in February, but those who registered have 3 options: vote by mail, vote online, or vote in person. This election marks the first time ever that registered voters will be able to physically vote at a polling site outside of Mexico. The consulate in Phoenix is one of 20 approved sites in the U.S. that will allow in-person votes on June 2nd.
We have a very large Mexican community in the U.S. and specifically in Arizona, and being very close to Mexico, the community here is very, very interested and involved in the political processes in Mexico. Having this opportunity to submit their vote, living here in Arizona, it's a very important step in order for to 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 have the community more involved in Mexico.
The election for president in Mexico will also have repercussions for the U.S. and for Arizona. Joining me to discuss this impacts is Congressman Greg Stanton. He serves as part of the House Foreign Affairs Committee, and in 2016, he established a trade office in Mexico. Congressman, thank you so much for joining us. To start off, can you tell us why should people here in Arizona pay attention to who becomes the next president of Mexico?
Most of the focus of the United States is on the American election, which is an incredibly important election. But we should be paying close attention to what happens in Mexico, because what happens there will definitely impact us here in Arizona in many different ways. From an economic perspective, nearshoring, I'm promoting trying to get as much of the semiconductor supply chain into the United States, but if not in the United States, in Mexico, Central America, for supply chain security purposes, which is so important in this industry. So from an economic perspective, from a trade perspective, it's important. Fentanyl. The new president of Mexico is going to have a huge decision to make about the issue about the importation from China, mostly, of precursor chemicals, fentanyl, and cracking down on the cartels. I have a strong critique of the current administration, the AMLO administration. They have not cracked down on the cartels, and that has hurt in terms of the flow of fentanyl into the United States and the flow of migration to the border as well. So immigration policy, water policy. Is there a more important issue in Arizona than water? Many people don't know that we have an important treaty with Mexico, and they have a certain rights to the Colorado River. We're all going to have to share in the cuts that are going to be made. Arizona, the 7 states that utilize the Colorado River, and Mexico. So that's incredible. And then energy policy. The AMLO administration has gone in a different direction than the previous administration, really contracted on energy policy. If we're going to be successful in nearshoring, growing the Mexican economy, which will help in terms of the migration, that can only be done if they really open up the energy markets in Mexico.
That's another topic that I wanted to ask about, because immigration and border security has become remains one of the main issues for the elections here in the United States. And so what are the things that you're looking for the next president of Mexico, given that Mexico is playing increasingly an important role in managing some of those migration flows, or working with the U.S. to try to stem the number of people reaching the U.S. border?
The current administration, the AMLO administration, the Morena Party, and people should know the leading candidate in the Mexican election, Claudia Sheinbaum, is from the same party. So it's likely going to be the same political party leading Mexico in the next election. I was critical of the current administration, how they've handled the cartels and not really cracking down on the cartels. I've criticized them on energy policy. We have to compliment them that more recently they have done a better job of stopping immigration flows inside of Mexico, meaning less people are reaching the U.S.-Mexico border. And there's a reason why in recent months there's been such a significant drop in migrants who are reaching the U.S.-Mexico border. But at the same time, we also have to be thinking about pathways for people still to have the opportunity to come to the United States. Dreamers should have the opportunity for citizenship. What about farm workers? People who put food on our table. They should have a public policy. The Farm Worker Modernization Bill is incredibly important. The bipartisan bill that does allow farm workers who work so hard to put food on our table an opportunity to stay in the United States of America. What about those that served alongside our military in Afghanistan because they worked so hard to save American lives? There's so many opportunities then to improve the American economy. I'll give you another example. If an international student comes to ASU and gets an advanced degree in science, technology, engineering, and math, we should stamp a green card to that diploma. That is smart economic policy for the United States of America. So what we need to do is have strong border security policy, but also a smart immigration policy that helps grow the American economy. We can and must do both.
Thank you so much, Congressman Stanton. For full coverage of the Mexican presidential election on June 2nd, as well as the Arizona ties, be sure to follow our Spanish language sister publication, La Voz Arizona, or visit AZ Central.
The Arizona Republic. Here for it. Are you?
For this week's Sunspot, we are taking you to the canyons of the Chiricahua Mountains. This corner of southern Arizona becomes bat central in the summer months. Each year, biologists conduct a bat survey. The Chiricahuas are home to nearly all of Arizona's 28 bat species, including year-round residents and seasonal bats traveling from Mexico. The bats are not only responsible for helping pollinate iconic desert plants like the saguaros, they also help with pest control in crop fields. Read more about the treasures within Arizona's Sky Islands by visiting AZ Central. Thank you for joining us on The Briefing, your weekly debrief of top news by the Arizona Republic and AZ Central. Have a great week.